I'm with Sophia today, and I'm really grateful that, you have accepted this invitation to come here. And
And thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here, really.
yeah, thank you. Maybe we can begin with your journey, like how has it been and how you've been
hmm
coming to therapy field.
Um, okay, that's always a slightly difficult question because there was no aim, there was no goal that some people are inclined towards this field, and I think I got pushed into it or just stumbled upon it
Mhm.
by coincidence. Um, I have been working in a university setting as an academic counselor for almost 2 decades now. So I would always come across as a good listener. People would label me, she's a very good listener. She would listen to you. Go to her, she would listen to you. And so that's how um, I was given also the advice of maybe pursuing this field that you're already doing the work, so why not do something professionally?
Mhm.
And that's how I started my journey as a trainee therapist. Started training as a psychotherapist and started practicing. And in during that time, there was always something that would uh, feel very limiting with just talk therapy, just working with the narrative. There was always something that felt very, very, very limiting when it came to just talk therapy, just working with the client's narrative, just looking at them as an individual. And from there on, I just started exploring
Mhm.
other ways of healing, just expanding beyond that, looking at the collective, looking at other themes, and then uh, the journey just continued and it continues to this day, exploring IFS, then learning about legacy burdens,
Mhm.
and then finding out ancestral healing, the realm of ancestral healing,
Mhm.
and psychopomp work.
Yes.
And so it's been just one thing after the other, just moving beyond the limitations. Wherever there's a limitation, I would look beyond it and see if there's something more to that,
Mhm.
if there's something more there that I
Mhm.
can explore, that can help my clients, that can help with my work, the way I'm working. So
Yeah.
that's how it's been like.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like there's a gradual movement from, unfolding of how starting with just, getting to know that you have a skills in listening, you have this capacity to really attune yourself to people, and then changing direction to working in a more mainstream setup
Mm.
as a therapist. So, I also was wondering, did you had any experiences, let's say, which were very dissatisfying when you were working, let's say, as a therapist, that moved you to look at not just an individual but look at collective. So you worked on. So one of the themes that brought me to you was ancestral healing and psychopomp, right? That's the
Mhm. Yes.
modalities that we probably will explore as well. So, were there any experiences for you that felt like, okay, now I need to shift from just this individual to collective or to ancestral legacy, and also try different modalities?
Mm. See the therapeutic model, the way we approach talk therapy
Mhm.
is very Western. And I didn't know it in the beginning when I started training. I didn't realize that that model as it is cannot fit into into a South Asian setting
Mhm.
to generalize it. It's a very the Eurocentric, westernized models of therapy, they focus on the individual.
Mhm.
It's all about you as an individual, what's happening with you, what's happening inside you, and not taking into account the systemic oppressions, not taking into account the kinds of settings a person is living in, not taking, uh, not considering that you cannot basically uh, advise a person to just love and light their way out of the oppression, the oppressive environments that they're living in, the kinds of environments that we, the people in this country, for example, are facing, the family systems
Yeah,
that
that's
we're living in. They're very different from the Western models.
mhm.
So there, वहाँ पे the difference, एक वहाँ पे difference आ जाता है, and then also the cultural context. So
Yeah,
I started seeing the limitations of what I was working with, the therapeutic models that I was working with, and are they really are they really fitting into the work that I am doing? Can I really follow that to the T? And I just kept running into these walls that this is not working here. This person is going through something that's beyond them. That's not theirs to carry. They're carrying something, but it's not stemming from them.
mhm.
It's coming from somewhere else. So how can I help them with that? IFS helped to some extent, the part about legacy burdens
Mhm.
that opened the door for me to ancestral healing.
Yeah,
That was a very important turning point for me, that most of the things that we're carrying are not ours, because some isolation में तो नहीं, we didn't just sprout out of nowhere. We're
exactly.
connected with we're connected to so many things. It's a web
Mhm.
that we're connected to. We're
Exactly.
connected to a bloodline. We're carrying there it's so many things, so many gifts, and so many burdens have been passed on to us
Traumas
through
as
those people.
well. Mhm.
Yes.
Yes,
So
it's
we are, not everything is stemming from me. If I have depression just out of nowhere, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. It just maybe it's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from one of my ancestors, and it's been passed down. And
yeah,
no one's done anything about it so far.
it's true.
So it's much
Yeah.
larger than you yourself as an individual. And that's where the limitation of the Western model of therapy lies. That's a big limitation. जहाँ पे सिर्फ it's just you, सिर्फ सब कुछ आपके गिर्द घूमता है, आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, उसके आगे पीछे कुछ नहीं है. You work on yourself. You set boundaries. You cut people off,
Mhm.
and so on and so forth. And
Exactly.
then your life will be peaceful.
Yes. That's a very
It
short.
doesn't take into account yes, it's very short term, and it doesn't take into account the relationality, how we exist. Like my existence is in relation to every single being and object around me.
Mhm.
How do I relate with you? How do I relate with this person? How do I relate with this? How do I relate with nature? How
Yeah.
do I relate with the universe in general?
Mhm.
How do I relate to the sky, to the trees around me, to the land around me?
Mhm.
So it also goes beyond just the human relations, just the blood relations. It's about me relating to every single thing around me.
Yeah, that's that's beautiful, and that's very powerful also because it's like we begin to feel the interweb, the connection we feel with every being, every nature, every element in this universe. And I agree with you the way how Western medicine or how the Western approach has been is a very reductionist. Like it's just, it's very isolating, as if we all are living in a box cut off from each other. We don't know our neighbors
Mm,
anymore.
yeah.
Like, and we work in cubicles and boxes, and
Mm,
there's this lack
mm.
of uh, you know, community. So I'm also, yeah. You want to add something to
Yeah.
that?
Yes, yes. I would also like to add a disclaimer that I'm not debunking that model entirely, because it is useful.
Yes.
It has its purposes. It is very useful, and I have lots of people who come to me, and in this particular model helps them. So I'm not entirely debunking it. I'm just naming the limitations, that it can only work to this extent, and then there's things beyond that too. So if it's not this particular model is not working for you, then maybe you have to look at something else.
Mhm,
Maybe you have to look beyond that.
mhm.
Maybe there's something else that's there, and you have to look at that.
No, no, that's true. That's very cautious of you to bring that disclaimer. But it's also like to let's allow ourselves to also fully explore this theme as well. That there is it is helpful for many people, of course, and but it's also limiting for many people. Like, so
Mhm.
what comes to my mind is this example of I think there's one doctor who always mentioned that, for example, if there's a fish ball, right? And in the bowl, that you see that there are many fish, and slowly each fish is just dying, right? And then you may wonder, okay, if this fish is dying, something is wrong. Is something, something failed in their body systems. Okay, another fish died, right? But then nobody's saying, hey, wait, what if the water in the pond is dirty, or something is wrong with the water?
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
contaminated.
Yes.
What is the
Hmm.
atmosphere like? So it's not just
Hmm.
about that individual fish. There's something
Hmm.
I mean, that's also important to fix and to care for,
Absolutely.
to attend to.
Yes.
But at the same time, we neglect the overall, atmosphere for so. Yeah, I'm also thinking when you talk about internal family systems, right? So, um, would you want to talk a bit more about, your understanding of it, and how was that one of the first like stepping stones from you to understand maybe the inner life of your patients? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's for people who are living with psychosis, perhaps, and people who there's a okay, I will rephrase my answer here. In my work, I have seen a lot of people struggle with feeling multiple different feelings at the same time and thinking that there's something wrong with them, that they have to be one whole. And yes, that's true as well, but then the concept of holding multilarities within you, that if you are feeling three or four parts of you at the same time, doesn't mean that there's a split or there's something wrong with you and that you uh like there's a psychosis. Sometimes it's also labeled as psychosis
Mhm,
at times. Um, this this model explains a lot about multiple parts, holding multiple parts of you inside, and how you can harmonize
mhm,
all of those parts and accept all parts of you, all different parts of you, the good and bad, all of them at
mhm.
the same time.
Yeah.
It's about this part is functional at this time, this part is dominant at this time, this part is not so dominant at this time. So you, in different situations, a different part of you will come up.
Mhm,
It's not that you have multiple personalities or a split personality disorder.
mhm,
It's just that every human being, and that's the way we are supposed to exist, holding multilarities inside us.
mhm. Yeah.
Not just polarities, but multilarities.
Mhm,
A person has so much inside. It's not just one. It's not just a good or a bad thing. It's not black or white.
mhm. Yeah. You're
It's
right.
this whole
Yeah.
spectrum of grays in
Mhm.
between.
Yeah. That's true.
IFS gives you that understanding of
Yeah.
how to accept that, how to come into acceptance of, yes, I do have this anxious part and I do have this calmness inside me, and they can exist at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah. So to stay with that ambivalence in a way that, that not in more like a gray area, that's also like a certain capacity, emotional capacity to be with. I mean, I really sort of, resonate the idea that integrating our internal parts, those smaller parts, or the parts which are fragmented, and and to hold them. So it's also like, I think
Mm,
in one of the schools of psychotherapy, especially in object relations, there is a so I think it's very like, these internal parts are also internalized from outside. We call them objects or internal parts, but they're also
mm,
internalized from our relational patterns or people around us,
absolutely.
right? So
Mm,
so especially from our caregivers, if the struggle is in the beginning, and often those parts we have, like, okay, so it's part of our, some parent figure or some sibling figure or some who's anxious, who's
mm,
who's
mm.
not involved, who's very disturbed, and that's the part we carry in ourselves. And so in this way is also like there's some kind of legacy that is happening
Yeah,
within the
absolutely.
within the
Yes,
present
yes.
life. And
Mm,
yeah, but as you explore this, you also work goes in exploring this legacy, not just what is in the living form, but is also that
mm.
is happening over many many sort of years, right?
Yes,
Decades. Yeah.
yes, yes. The legacy burdens. IFS calls it legacy burdens. And then when you go into the ancestral realm, the work that I'm doing, it's about ancestral. I would call it generational transmission, not just trauma.
Okay.
It's generational transmission because we have gifts and blessings from our ancestors as well. And
Uh-huh.
that gets overlooked when we're talking about generational stuff.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. So one of the things when we talk about generation, right? So we both have similar roots. Like I'm from India and you're from Pakistan, and it's more like we were India almost 70 years back or so. And so and today also happens to be Independence Day of Pakistan. It's 14th August. So it's for us to like probably revisit this experience of, let's say, partition, that when we look at generationally, of course, this is a very, I think, very strong experience as a collective. I wonder how you see it, how much you've delved into it, and what is your thoughts about this experience of partition?
It's a, honestly, it's a very complicated topic for me because growing up, there was so much there. I grew up with a lot of nationalism and patriotism, and then it always seemed like in order to be a patriot or to declare your love for the nation, there has to be an enemy that you have to renounce. So it always came with there's an enemy
And and
right
that's
next door.
and that's India, right?
That's India. Yes, yes. So it's always been, and then growing up, there wasn't much talk about partition as it happened. It was always glorified, for me at least. That's been my experience. It might
Mhm.
be different for other people, but my personal experience has been it was always glorified and romanticized, the partition.
In what ways was it glorified and romanticized? Like how?
That we finally found freedom. We were freed from the oppression and we have our own country where we can practice our religion and again rooted in nationalism.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. The patriotic songs, they're playing everywhere today as well. Um,
Yeah.
but the reality of partition is something that I learned a bit through fiction
Mhm.
and then doing my own research on what actually happened and the stories that don't make it to the mainstream media
Mhm.
at all. What actually happened, the ruptures that happened, the partition, the word partition itself. It's like that line that was drawn, the partition of
Yes.
the land, how it impacted the land. And just imagine you're sitting here one day, you have everything, you're living in a house and you're told that you have to leave.
Right.
You have to up and leave, yes. And we're not even providing you with any means of moving your things, and you just have to leave
Yeah.
and go to a completely new place where you have, you know, nobody and you have no assets and you have nothing on you. So it's the uprooting of your life,
Yeah.
the uprooting of your entire life on both sides.
Yes.
That's the sad reality of it. That doesn't get mourned. We haven't grieved at all.
Yeah.
We've been celebrating the independence that we have never had a chance to grieve the partition of this land and what actually happened. Because what it's done is that people have been left grieving on their own. At that time, they were just they were in a survival mode. They just had to then make do with whatever they were left with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from there on, it's just been individuals grieving their own losses.
Yeah.
Although it was a collective loss, it was such a huge loss that
Mhm.
we're still living with.
Yeah.
And we're still facing the repercussions of that we don't realize.
Mhm.
But the grief has never been felt collectively.
Mhm. Yeah. That's true. So exactly, it's it's still there, and I hope we can create space for this grief. It's a collective grief, and I wanted to also learn from you what stories, what fiction, and from fiction you got to know, but what stories were those that you got became aware of about it, and that about the partition, and if you could remember them or if you want to share them.
There's a lot of historical fiction that has been written on partition.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember I have a list. I have a list somewhere that I can share with you.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's
I
sure.
have a list. I have a long list of partition literature,
Mhm.
fiction and non-fiction both.
Mhm.
And I started with fiction. I've been an avid reader since childhood, and so I would read every kind of book. And then I think it started with I think it was Udas Naslein by
Mhm.
Abdullah Hussain. It's also been translated into English.
Mhm.
The Weary Generations, it's called. I read that, and then Angan by Khadija Mastoor.
Mhm.
These books and the stories, it made me realize that okay, this is fiction, but something happened.
Yeah.
Because that's how I see fiction as it's not made up.
Mhm.
It's based on something. It's based
Exactly.
on something that has happened in this world.
Mhm.
And that's just an account of the author, the account that the author is giving you, but something happened.
Mhm.
And then I have read a lot of nonfiction accounts of partition as well. People's stories. The Citizens Archive has a lot of stories that
Mhm.
people who have seen it with their own eyes, who migrated across borders, they have recounted their stories. Um, so all that has
Yeah.
uh, give me a lot of context on what actually went down.
Out of all these stories and
Mm.
accounts, are there any anecdotes or moments that just stayed with you, like if or any moment like of whether partition or of movement, migration. Like I remember in our previous conversation, you also shared that your paternal grandmother, your dadi, was from Amritsar, right? So which is perhaps
Mhm.
was on the other side after the partition, right? So
Yes.
just yeah.
Uh, my all my grandparents were on this side, the right side, luckily, when the partition happened. But before that, most of my great grandparents and grandparents, they were working with in civil service, so they got posted around the subcontinent
Mhm.
in railways and uh, in other sectors. They would get posted around. So my dadi grew up in Amritsar, And she used to tell us stories about their neighbors,
Mhm.
the people that she grew up with, and she would sometimes wonder, naming those people, what they must be doing now, how are they doing, and so on and so forth. So there were a lot of stories growing
Yeah.
up, what she would tell us,
Mhm.
and the missing of those people, the missing, the longing
Yeah.
for those times, for those places,
Yeah.
because it wasn't that the border was drawn and you were allowed to move freely between the border. Wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
were stuck behind those borders.
Mhm.
The doors were closed, as opposed to people moving freely
Yeah.
between those cities
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
Punjab.
Yeah. Perhaps there was also a lot of terror and a lot of fear
Hmm.
because
Yes.
beneath this movement of freedom and celebration, there was there was mass killing, there was rapes, there was murders.
Hmm.
I think I don't know
Yes.
1 million people around. I don't know the exact number, but there were there was such a big migration that with so many killings and so many deaths and too many people witnessing it that so that's also sometimes I also wonder because I don't have the exact account. So it's just because because in my own family, like my grandparents were in on the other side, on the Pakistan side, and in Lyalpur, and
Hmm.
when they were moving from there to come here in Lucknow, I'm not sure, especially about my grandfather, how his journey might have been and whether he must have witnessed some kind of, just killing or on whether on train or whether just on the caravan he's coming, that there's any witnessing of some kind of, painful moment. So I also wonder if in your family, there's one account of, okay, there's a nostalgia about remembering about the place, but is there also ever like when we call zikr, like remembrance of any laws or any kind of such kind of abuse or death that has happened ever?
No, not at all. As I said, I growing up, I did not know about any of this, about the loss.
Mhm.
This figure that is mentioned here and there, 1 million, there's absolutely no account of that.
Mhm.
It's not been documented at official levels, I would
Mhm.
say. Officially, it's not been documented at the government level, let's say,
Yeah.
because there's a collective amnesia that we're living with.
Mhm.
Again, just romanticizing the independence.
Mhm.
Large P, we're celebrating independence. We're not mourning those losses at all.
Mhm. So,
We're
so
just celebrating. We
yeah.
have been celebrating for 75 plus years.
Mhm. So exactly. So today is the Independence Day for your their country, and as an ancestral healer, so if you have to heal this or grieve this or mourn this loss, um, or come out of this collective amnesia, how do we do that? Like, how do we go about this? If we try to grieve this together here, this, this so much of loss on both sides.
It starts with acknowledgement on both sides,
Hmm.
acknowledgement of what actually happened and how unfair it all was. Because did it solve any problems for anyone?
Hmm.
Maybe it did. It did. The way it happened, the way it happened was really, really messed up.
Hmm.
The hurriedly, the way people were just told to up and leave, uh, the loss, all kinds of losses
Yeah.
that they faced, and
Yeah.
they're still living with it. And the grounds for it was the 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 what I have been taught growing up is that there was discord between Hindus and Muslims. No, that's what we are taught in our history books, in our Pakistan studies books. The
Okay.
partition happened. We had to separate because there was discord between Hindus and Muslims. So in order to exist peacefully, being able to practice our own religions, this was necessary.
Okay.
But my question would be, did the facade end? Did the Danga facade end? Look at what we are doing in our respective countries. Look how we are living still.
Mm,
Did it end there?
yeah.
Really, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
It's an acknowledgement of what actually went down and just get out of that glorification of independence of partition and look at partition as it was.
Mm, yeah.
I think
That's
it goes beyond that to the rest of the world, to how colonialism happened across the world.
mm,
It's again, the losses that people felt, the people who were colonized.
mm,
We were also colonized. And look what happened as a result. And we're still bearing the consequences of all that.
mm,
And
yeah.
this is not just an isolated incident. All over the world.
Yeah. So, so
So
what?
that's what ancestral healing, that's what the ancestral part of it takes, the way I practice it is beyond you as an individual, it's beyond your lineage. It goes beyond that to the collective, to the cultural healing, to the cultural wounding.
Yeah, that's true. So it is also feels like that when this moment was happening, 1947, there was not just a freedom from colonization. Because there's the one strong feeling we're getting free from British, right? From colonization. But as I hear from you in the textbook that you're reading, it's also like I'm learning that that's also freedom from India, from Hinduism, from your own space. And of course, you're
Mhm.
right. The seeds of hatred and the violence was never sort of like got a space to heal, and it's on the ground of that some kind of othering is already happening
It's
when we
already built.
is
Mhm.
so deeply when
Mm.
and it's a strong conditioning to be born and growing up with to undo, to sort of work it out. And so it feels like a very space of lot of amnesia, a lot of repression, as you said, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so what I also hear is that there's a betrayal in this. Because the fact that the way the when we talk about partition, the way line is divided, and the way uh, you know, all this happened without proper sort of, even if it has to happen, without proper structure, proper planning, proper, just a very rushed manner. I'm not sure if at first place we would wanted that, or
Mm.
that's also
Mm.
something. It's of course is one thing we can
Yeah.
talk about it. It's in the past, but now that it's happened, but there's a sense of like a very lot of confusion, a lot of betrayal, a lot of unjust feeling, and strong uprootedness. So when you say let's acknowledge these feelings, so we're also acknowledging the inner feelings of being uprooted, shattered, confused, disoriented, and almost have to migrate, like I mean, perhaps migration was not so as um, like a phenomena that is now globally, because now migration is much more conscious, intentional. A lot of people from our countries go to other countries, let's say Middle East or US, Europe, and people come here. A lot of in your countries, there's a lot of travel is much more than before. People are living in different countries from where they were born. So there's more conscious uprooting happening, maybe for jobs, maybe for
Mhm.
better lifestyle,
Yes.
education. So perhaps it was happening then also, but it's not as like people just, you know, but this like settle down as with force. Seems like a migration of thoughts with oppression, with force, with a lot of but it also has a similar consequence of uprootedness, not connected to your roots. And
Hmm.
so are there any rituals or any ceremonies or any, how do you help people, in your work to connect them with their roots? Uh, do you, yeah, yeah, that's something I want to know.
Hmm. See, it starts with, again, it starts with you, starts with your individual healing so that you can connect with your ancestors then. It's
Mm,
connecting with your ancestors and realizing that the land is also your ancestor.
mm,
So connecting with the land in spirit is also a way of healing. That's also ancestral. That's part of ancestral healing is connecting with the land, with your ancestral land in spirit if you can't be there physically. If
mm.
there are limitations to doing that physically, then connecting with the land in spirit to the world beyond, in the liminal space, the world beyond the physical world, the spirits of that land.
How
They
do
are
you
keepers of each land. That the way you connect with the ancestors is the way you connect with the spirits of the land.
how do you
Because your
connect with the land?
ancestors,
Like, how do you connect with the land, the spirits of the land?
that's the real ancestral work.
Mhm, mhm.
It's you calling upon your ancestors. See, ancestral work. Okay, let's talk about the ancestral healing.
Sure.
It's it's not something uh, that you have to really learn from someone. Every person is carrying all of that, your lineages inside you. Every single person. You carry it within you. All the stories, all the knowledge, it is within you. And everyone has an innate ability to connect with their ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah. So
The
it's more.
belief, the belief brings you to that point where you can actually do the work. Uh, and connecting with the ancestors, of course, they're yours. It's similar to going and meeting your relatives in the physical realm.
It's
As if you're अभी भी आप किसी से मिलने जा रहे हो आपके फैमिली के बुजुर्ग हैं you're going to meet them. It's similar to that. Those you have those that have passed on, you're going and meeting them. You're calling upon them. You set an intention to meet them. And the work of a practitioner, me as a practitioner, is to hold a safe container for someone to go and meet their ancestors. Like I'm a tour guide, I'm a travel agent. I'm making sure that they're following a safe route, that they're not going here and there, they're not getting lost on the way,
and they're
and
safe.
that they're safe, they're making their way to where they're supposed to go.
Uh-huh.
That's my work as a guide.
So uh,
I'm not connecting with someone else's ancestors on their behalf. I'm just making sure that they have an itinerary, a safe itinerary, and that they have gone on to meet the right person, that they haven't fallen here and there on the way. That's my work. And I help people connect with their ancestors. And then because your land, the land that you belong to, land doesn't belong, you belong to the land. The land doesn't belong to you. So the land that you belong to, the land that recognizes you,
uh-huh.
the land that your ancestors have belonged to, it recognizes you. So through that, you connect with your land connection.
Yeah. So that's beautiful what you've shared, that you can just allow, you can be like a traveler, you're a fellow traveler with them, and you're facilitating that holding space for them so that they can travel through, time and meet their inner, you know self, and through that, in the inward journey, they can connect with a realm, right? In a realm where they have
Hmm.
ancestral realm, they're able to meet them. I was
Yes.
this brings me at a question that if I have to ask you, if the land that we have to start with, let's say we start with, we to understand your worldview and your perspective, where do you think life really began? What is the land that, like if you go in ancestral, you go back to almost, do you go back to the starting point, or um if you go to a starting point, like where the beginning, what is your orientation and how do you see that?
It's every person has their own cosmology.
Hmm.
It's different for every individual being. They
Hmm.
have their own cosmology. For them, it's for some people, it's the very recent ones only. So they orient themselves to the most recent ones.
Hmm.
Sometimes people who are new to the work and they can only recognize the most recently deceased ones,
Hmm.
and their work sometimes gets limited to just those 3 to 5 generations. And for some, it goes to the literal beginning of time, wherever that may be. We can't say for sure. The
So,
literal beginning of time. And then sometimes there's also pre-human ancestors too. There's a lot in that realm that is being explored, that can be explored.
yeah.
Uh, but every person has their own cosmology, and it varies. I
Yeah.
can't say कि ये बस ऐसे ही होगा.
Hmm.
यहाँ से शुरू होता है और यहाँ तक जाता है और हम ये करते हैं और हम ये करते हैं. No, it's not that. I cannot dictate that. You have your own cosmology. I will have my own cosmology. The people who will show up for me, the way I will view the liminal space, the way I will view that timeline since the beginning of time. Is it linear? Is it spiral? It varies from person to person.
Sure, sure, exactly. So, because when I also read on your website, and as we were talking last week, you mentioned that in your, history of land, you mentioned Pakistan, India, then you mentioned Middle East, and then
Hmm.
mentioned Central Asia, which is Iran, perhaps,
Yes.
right? So when I also talk about this, because there are, like, let's say there are perspective, because in some modern more scientific way of looking at it, they say there are the beginning of the modern human being, not going into the pre-human stage, but a modern human being was there in Africa somewhere, which is like present Africa. And but that's more like one perspective. Then there's another
Hmm.
perspective that says that, I think that more is also like a religious, or that says that the beginning of the human that we see is in a place like in Iran, right? Which is we calling Central Asia. So that's what I'm also trying to say, that when we talk about beginning, do you locate this in Central Asia near Iran? That's the place you feel would be the beginning of like a human life, that till
Hmm.
we can go to ancestors, or yeah.
Hmm. Interesting question. I
Mhm.
would say again, it would be different for every person. It would be for me. It's I say Central Asia because I have had ancestors show up from that place, and there's a pull that I feel
Mhm.
from that land.
Yeah.
I haven't been there, but there's a calling,
Mhm.
and I know it's a strong calling, and I know that that land is calling me. So that's how I know. That's how I know that there is something there. There's some ancestral connection,
Yes.
which goes back perhaps maybe hundreds of generations ago.
Yeah.
इतना इतना पीछे के वो insignificant हो जाता है. You can't even, in the physical terms, you can't even call them your ancestors, but then they are your ancestors because somewhere upstream there was someone was living there and they because there's a lot of migration and displacement that has happened.
Yes. Yes. That's true. So it's interesting you bring in that the roots from which you pull is that land, right? So, and that's the strongest feeling you could get in, and that's very different from how, uh, archaeologically a scientist would also look like, right? That just a carbon dating,
Hmm.
trying to look at
Yes.
where it's a very detached, a very
Hmm.
lab space, but this is also like a pull, like a strong magnet, almost a gravitational like pull you feel from the land of your roots. So
Hmm. Yes.
um yeah that yeah.
Yeah, because see, the geographical history, it's it's also very limited if we look at this region, the Indus Valley civilization. There's not much documentation on that.
Yeah.
It's not well documented as opposed to places in the European side, the historical mapping that has happened in other parts of the world, as opposed to the Indus Valley civilization. If you pick up a geography book,
Mhm,
a tome, and it will have just out of maybe 1,500 pages, there will be just 1 or 2 pages on Indus Valley civilizations, and that's it because it's not documented.
yeah.
It's just it's you don't know. We don't know what happened there. We
Mhm,
don't know what kind of we know a little bit, but it's not well documented. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of ifs.
mhm,
But then there's also a connection with the Celtic region.
mhm,
The objects, the symbols that were found there are similar to the ones that were found in the Indus Valley civilization.
mhm,
So there's that connection too. यहाँ से वहां तक भी कोई connection है.
mhm,
And then those symbols are repeated somewhere else as well.
mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah.
that shows you somehow that gives you a map of what could have been.
Mhm,
But connecting with your ancestors give you a lot of clarity. We
mhm.
didn't have these borders
Yeah.
until very recently, I would say.
No,
We didn't
no.
have borders,
Yeah.
and there was free movement, and people would move from here to there, and there were. It wasn't. It was. It's hard to define the ancestral realm in terms of how we're living life right now.
Mhm. Yeah. I think it would be difficult but now that we can imagine it, right? Now that you mentioned there's no borders, we didn't have passports. There was no idea of
Mhm.
having a
Hmm.
visa. You can just walk in and move to a place, and suddenly in some part of the world, and they say, oh, this person is not from here, somebody else. Like how we can travel within India, any one state to another, and we find, oh, this person is not from here, from
Hmm.
somewhere else,
Hmm.
but walked. Similarly,
Yes.
like inside in your country, right? You can walk freely. So now, but you're saying that in ancestral times there was no such sense of you know um isolated islands
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that what we can
Yes, there were
call.
kingdoms.
uh hmm
आपकी सल्तनत होती थी, and then it would end somewhere, and then there will be some other king's rule, and that's how the sort of borders were defined, but they weren't strict borders, and you didn't need a visa. You
hmm
didn't need passports to travel.
hmm
There was comparatively there was free movement around the world. There was trade, the trading routes, if you look at them.
hmm So
And so it's the definition of if I say that I have roots in Middle East and also Central Asia, people might question it. How? You don't look like any of those people. You look different, but it it's different in that context.
mhm,
If we go back 1,000 years, for example,
mhm,
the world today, the way we define these things today are not are not as are not similar as things were 1,000 years ago. The world was a different place.
Yeah. So, so I'm also curious from you that if you have to tell me a time or an era in if you have worked in your, gone back to your ancestral and have spent time there, different, age, years and gaps. Uh, is there a time where you feel more like rooted more as like this era you want to live? Like, is the era you're feel like more like a home for you, or is it a present that you feel is it that
Mhm.
I I'm not sure if you ever thought of this question, but
I
like
would say generally, I would say yes, it's a good question. Before the Industrial Revolution,
okay.
I cannot pinpoint a particular
Uh-huh.
century or an era, but before Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to share a bit more
Mm.
about like with why what was it like and why before industrial revolution is to of course that's the time when whole scientific and it's the roots of colonialism starts to happen, but
Mm.
Western dominance. But if you have to go before that, like how, what does your heart says about that time? You know.
So it's a longing for a more indigenous way of living,
Hmm.
more connected to the land, again, more connected to the land, belonging to the land, respecting the land, a more animist way of living. So, and growing your sustenance, getting your sustenance from the land
Hmm.
instead of relying on prepackaged food.
Hmm.
So, again, I'm generalizing, generally speaking. That's the
No,
time that I long for.
no, I
Mm.
think we can generalize, of course, we can speak about in that manner, but I I would agree with you in a way that we can say clearly that we do experience a kind of loneliness in this world, in this modern world. Of course, if we are not so interconnected, we are in, like not connected to just people, small group of our quality friends and our workplaces and few clients, and we're not connected to nature. We're not praying to water or sun or sky.
Mm.
We don't have a
Mm.
relationship
Yes.
with them. It kind of gonna bring a kind of loneliness, like which we can say that it's obvious a fact of life. I mean, we're this is a lonely civilization right now. It's like an epidemic, right? I mean, we're saying that loneliness is an epidemic in the background. Everyone in some way experience it, and when I listen to your that imagination of before industrial, more indigenous, it felt like there we did, at least did not have this kind of struggle of this sense of loneliness of life that
Hmm.
perhaps
Yes.
is there
Yes.
today.
Hmm. And also, see, I have lived that life growing up for some time. I have lived away from big cities
Hmm.
in places where we actually had fireflies. I don't see any fireflies anymore. I long for that time. I long for those spaces. It's been decades since I saw any firefly.
Okay. When you moved out of city and lived in a more quite a was it a rural place? What was it like? Which place was that? And
It was my father was in army, so we got posted to very far off, God-forsaken places sometimes.
mhm,
So in military areas that they were away from the cities,
I see.
sometimes up in the mountains.
Okay.
And there was a connection to nature. So growing up, I had that connection. I had that connection to nature. And looking back, I can see now that I had a connection to the land spirits. I had a connection to the trees at that time without knowing what it actually was.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah,
got to have that connection very early on. I had that.
yeah.
I experienced world as in that form. I have experienced the world in that form.
Mm.
And there is a longing for me living in these big cities. There's a longing for me to go back to that, or maybe recreate. There is still a future, not go back, but move forward towards that
Yes,
once again.
exactly. That's that's what if your heart calls in to live a life where feel closer to nature that allows you to live in a route. I think many people might choose to do that in their own way to live in a nature and not sort of bounded by this modern life. But it's also interesting that when we are growing up as child, we have a very natural connection to all those things, all nature, and we don't have to like
Mm.
name
Yes.
them or call it. And
Mm.
it's also like the perhaps the modern education in some ways also takes us away from that. And then we have to reconnect. I mean, if I can say that we have to reconnect and name that and find a language around it. But but as we are born, we are naturally born as a interconnected being who's um, shaped by all kinds of factors and experiences.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we explored in great length about ancestral healing. Maybe we can spend some time talking about your work as a psychopomp, and maybe that's something we have not touched about. Uh, and maybe talking about
Mm.
death, right? And yeah, and
Mm.
like yeah.
Yeah. Mm. That's something that's very close to my heart. That's
Mhm.
again, it was a calling. Death work was a calling. And yes, there is a lot of ceremony around death here, at least in this part of the world. I would say it's not, thankfully, as opposed to the Western world, where it's institutionalized, the funeral industry and all. Uh, but being a death worker and being a psychopomp, it's not something that I can talk openly about with people
Mhm.
because it's not so widely accepted here. It's almost an unknown concept, being a
Mhm.
death worker.
Mhm.
But I feel it stems from the need to see when a soul comes into this world, the kinds of celebrations that happen
Mhm.
should be the same as when a soul is leaving the world.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where it stems from, giving a person s- that same ceremony, that celebration when they are leaving this world.
Mhm.
Yes, there's grief also, but celebrating their life and people who are nearing the end of their life, it's the kind of support that they get is mostly medical interventions,
Mhm.
pain management at that time, people living with a terminal diagnosis.
Mhm.
There's, I think there's almost no form of psychological support, formal in a formal or informal way. I mean, yes, of course, family is there sometimes. Sometimes even family isn't present. But the kind of emotional and psychological support that they need towards the end of their life, that's missing. That's a missing part.
Yeah.
We don't really talk about it because let's not talk about the fact that this person is has a terminal diagnosis, this person is about to die.
Mhm.
और उसके अलावा भी, other than that, for you and me, we don't think about death as a reality, as a reality that's right here. We
Yes.
don't think about it. It's something that will happen at some point. But are we preparing for it? Are
Yes.
we living like we can leave anytime?
Mhm.
Are we ready to leave? The concept of a good death, I feel like that's missing.
Okay.
People don't really think about a good death. People think about a good life, how to live a good life, but are you preparing for a good death?
Hmm. Yeah.
If I were to die tomorrow, am I prepared? Or do I have a lot of unfinished business? Yes, I have. Yes, I do have. At least right now, I am aware of all the unfinished business that I have right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
The things that I will leave behind and the problems that may be created for my family, for the people that I love. So becoming aware of that, being prepared,
Yeah.
actually tangibly prepared for that.
Yeah.
That's what death work is about. So it's preparing, having conversations uh, about around death,
Hmm.
what it actually is, and so that people can actually move past their fear of death,
Yeah.
so that they can actually look at it, look at the concept of death and the the fact that no, none of us are making it out of here alive,
Yes.
and preparing ourselves for it,
Hmm.
or at least keep thinking about it, being prepared at all times,
Hmm.
preparing ourselves for a good death.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's something that I aim to do. I haven't really done any, I wouldn't say I've been working in this area and I've been talking to people. I haven't. I haven't been as I would like to.
Hmm. Hmm.
I haven't really started any work, any not like organizing people and having talks on this topic.
Hmm.
I haven't yet.
Hmm. Yeah.
But this is a desire that I hold inside me. And I would like to, I would love to have a group of people that I can talk to about this. I would like to be open about this, like have open conversations because people also find it. I have tried, but at some occasions, people find it very, very morbid
Yeah.
and they tend to space out or just change the conversation.
Yeah.
It is a morbid topic
Hmm.
because it makes you think about a lot of things that you don't want to think about. Maybe you don't have space to think about because you have a life to live and there's so much to take care of while you're living. You
Yes.
can't really think about a death. That brings up a lot of questions.
Yes. And we can spend time with those questions. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking of a philosopher. There's one philosopher, I forgot the name. He said that it's only when we really think about death deeply, then only we can actually begin to know what is a good life. Like,
Absolutely. Yes.
so,
Yes.
so,
That's my philosophy too. I mean, death teaches you about life. Death teaches you how to live a good life too, because then you're not taking it for granted. Then you're not putting things off. You know, that thing that you've been thinking about doing next year, what if there is no next year? And not in an anxiety-inducing way.
Mhm.
Not, again, not living in a fear of death at
Mhm.
all times, that maybe I will die and then what will happen?
Yeah.
You know, living in a way that if I were to, as part of my training, it's the question that I always hold in my mind at all times is that if I were to die in 3 months, what is it that I should be doing right now? Like live as if you're going to die in 3 months' time. Like you have a terminal diagnosis and you're dying in 3 months' time. How are you going to live then? That's a practice that people can start with. How are you going to live? And are you going to really put things off for next year or for 6 months later?
Yeah. Exactly. So I think sort of like death brings that kind of urgency or immediacy to be like in here and now in the life. So if we open up these conversations and if I ask you, what is death? Like, why do we die? And so, of course, what happens after we die? Where do we go? Do we really, really die? Or what is it that is dying? And what is death? Like, of course, these are questions that are like more very fundamental. Of course, as much as you can
Hmm.
respond to in your own
Hmm.
way. Because we when somebody's born, there's like a midwife, right, who's bringing the soul into this our planet, right? So it's also like it's a process. So I see Psychopomp is almost like in the other end of the transition, which midwife is
Yes.
almost building and Psychopomp is also departing. It's like arrival and departing, right?
Hmm.
So what is departing? Like, mm, what is death? Why do we die? And where do we go from here? And it also brings us question, what is life? Why are we here if we are going to die? What is this all going on? You know? So yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And well, of course, there's no fixed answer to any of these questions. It's people's belief systems. Everyone, I can
how do
answer the question about where do we go when we die?
you,
Is you go where you believe you will go. That's the short answer.
so
Again, your own cosmology, your belief system.
so
As a
exactly.
psychopomp, yeah, as a psychopomp, it's very important for me to to know about my client's belief system so that I know where they're going to go.
So
That's how it works.
there's no universal uh like fact around it.
The universe is also not fixed. There is a universe, it's not fixed.
Hmm.
It's also relative. It's how you observe it.
Hmm.
It's how you observe the universe.
So,
It's your own belief systems. That's how the universe appears for you.
mhm. So
So where you go, when you die is dependent on your belief system.
that's very relative to the person's cosmology they'll bring, right? So,
Yes.
so if I have to ask you that, how do you see it? What is your orientation? Like, what is the cosmology that you live in? How do you see death? Where do you go? For example, in Hinduism, you believe that, okay, based on our karma, uh, they'll be. So we say that there's a Yamraj at the door, right? Who asks you questions and who kind of does they have a sort of record of everything, and they choose which door to go, right? Um, and I think in Islam or in Christian there is a judgment day, right? That the day
Hmm.
where
Yes.
you're going to be
Hmm.
questioned, and whether you go to heaven or hell, or whether you. So I don't think there's a reincarnation in your culture, right? It's in the more Hinduism that we, based on our whatever work we've done here, we are we either born depending on that, we're gonna born in a certain hierarchy of systems with certain kind of experiences. So but
Hmm. Again, cosmology,
okay.
cosmologies, and because I mean, I wouldn't go very deep into this conversation, into the belief systems, because that's a whole other conversation and it gets complicated too. I do not also have enough knowledge to talk about these things. But see, in Muslim tradition,
Mm,
it's you are the angels visit you in the grave, and you it's the hisab that you have to give for what you have done in life, and then the souls they all go to alame arwah, barzakh,
mhm,
until the day of judgment. That's where they reside, the
mhm,
in between, the liminal space. They're all there
mhm,
until the day of resurrection.
Mhm.
That's my cosmology. And it every belief system has their own cosmologies where they go. For me personally, see, death is a rebirth. Death is right at the cusp of birth. Death and birth exist alongside each other.
Mhm.
You know, there's an exit and there's an entry.
Mhm.
The soul is the soul's exit from this world and entry into back into the liminal realm. That's where it came from in the first place. That's cyclical. That the soul existed, the soul entered this world, and the soul has left this world to go back into the liminal realm. So that's how it is, the circle.
I see.
So birth, death, and birth, they're right next to each other.
Mhm. Yeah. So, do you feel that that gives you so that like few question comes to my mind. One is that do we what do you think there's only one planet like this where there's life, or do you think there are more galaxies and there are more we can go to another galaxy or we can go to another life sphere? That's one question. The other question is, yeah, we can probably
I would like to believe that. I would
yeah.
love to believe that. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, why it it doesn't seem possible to me that this is the only planet and that we are the only species, the human evolved species.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem possible to me. It's not believable कि बस हम ही हैं, बस यही है, इसके अलावा और कुछ नहीं है.
Mhm.
And we're the basically that comes from a very egoistic point of view that we're the special ones, the chosen ones, and we're the only ones. And maybe it's multiple timelines existing at the same time.
Mhm.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe those worlds exist at the same time, right now, parallel to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we cannot be sure, but yes, that's some kind of possibility that so we don't know which, but there's a liminal space where we rest and we stay before we come back to this
Mhm.
cycle. And so in this in the Hinduism call it cosmology, there's a there's a term called moksha, or like a salvation, that if one person does something, maybe finishes off their unfinished business or finishes their unprocessed grief, and they're able to sort of I don't know if that those are two conditions or they're much more than that, then they're able to get off this life. And so birth and death, sorry, this birth and death kind of cycle, right?
Mhm.
And but this is also like another kind of of course a lot of people perhaps spend time living life in that way, wanting to get mokshed, right? But perhaps it's not so common anymore as we're moving towards it. So perhaps maybe this is probably similar on your end, that maybe the religion's worldview or cosmic kind of cosmology is kind of not as
Mhm.
widespread, but it's changing. I would also want to look at this cosmology of like the science or a scientific cosmology. Like, let's say if you have a client who comes who's atheist, who is doesn't, wants to connect, of course, wants to connect through religious. How do you help them with, like, how do you think you can engage with them with death? For let's say after death, they just go back to being a matter, like a dust onto the soil, and no soul does not exist. There's just a big bang, and that's how we came. That's the starting of life. So we are just gonna go into that. So what is death for them? Like how do you see death in their cosmology?
It's again, how do they see? The question is, how do they see their death in their cosmology? Where do they perceive themselves going? Is it maybe is it sometimes it's just meeting their ancestors and going to the ancestral realm,
Yeah.
getting in touch with their ancestors. They're received by their ancestors. And so then The ancestors take it from there. That you're here, your soul is here. Let us take you to the liminal space, and that's how it is. But maybe if the person sees themselves as untethered, just free floating, that's their cosmology.
Yeah.
So it's not about how I see it.
Yeah.
It's what they are perceiving themselves to be, where they're perceiving themselves to go.
Yeah. So that's one of the meanings of death, right? You find out what is, and
Yes, yes. It's again, it's not for me or you to say कि ये होता है. This is definite. That this is what happens when you die.
Mhm.
We don't know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very subjective. Yeah. Would you want to share any thoughts on this question? Like, why do we die? There's any.
Hmm. Why do we die? It's let's say maybe when we have served our life purpose in this timeline, that's the end. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
And again, just leaving this realm to go to the liminal space and then existing there.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's more like actualizing our potential, and like, and then there's a decaying process of just collapse, and that's a collapse we don't talk about, it we don't prepare for, and that's an absent in our present
Mhm.
work. So but it's also must be very terrifying or very fragile. Somebody's disappearing slowly, body becomes so, old
Yes.
and dying, or if
Mm.
there's no such old age, but there's just an experience of like like a terminal disease, then there's just a gradual decay and decline, and that could be very terrifying and shattering,
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and
I think that's where the fears stem from. It's the gradual, even if you don't have a terminal diagnosis, just old age, decaying, gradually declining health and losing your faculties
mhm,
slowly. That's scary.
mhm,
You have been in the prime of your life and now you're not. And you're nearing the end of life and you, of course, leaving this world when you know this, when this is the only reality that you know of.
mhm,
That's scary. That is very scary.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's very
And
helpless.
in Muslim tradition, it is said that when you die, you still have, you can see and hear people around you who are grieving you, and then they take you to the grave and they put you in the grave and then they leave you, and you have that awareness while that's happening. And that in itself, that's very scary to come to terms with.
Yeah, it, yeah, that's beyond your control. Like, you don't
Yes.
know,
Hmm.
you don't know how they'll treat you. So yeah, that's and that affects you. So it's
Hmm.
some ways you're so.
Bilkul, bilkul. And that, because this is the reality that you know, this world, and there's the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen to you when you leave this world.
Mhm, mhm,
And of course, we form all kinds of attachments in this world. We
mhm.
have family, we have so much. We have our jobs, we have our all this stuff that we are attached to. So
Yeah,
thinking about just leaving, again, uprooting, displacement, it's a form of displacement.
yeah, it's
And you don't
uprooting.
know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen afterwards. It's
Yeah,
unknown. It's the fear of the unknown. So it's in a way connecting with the ancestors also helps with this fear of when you know someone on the other side, when
yeah,
you have acquaintances on the other side, when you have loved ones who have passed on, when you're connected to them, that helps with that fear
yeah,
of the unknown, that you know them. They have gone on to the other side and you have a connection with them. You know they're living well. You know how they're living. They're happy, they're content. So that helps with that,
Yeah, that's
you
yeah,
know.
that's like connecting with their parents and grandparents or people who have lost already loved one, carrying them in their heart, and then you'll join them, you know, and they'll be there in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Can be a really, really powerful feeling actually, like a very, very strong feeling of safety. It's almost like yeah, they're on the other end waiting. It's yeah, it's a beautiful feeling to
Mm-hmm.
deal with, I
Yeah,
think.
it's like migrating. You're migrating to an unknown country. And you don't know anyone there, as opposed to there's someone coming to receive you at the airport.
Mhm. Exactly. So that can lift off some anxiety a little bit, but it's still the unknown still remains. Like no matter how much you
It
know,
does. Yes.
on the other
Yes.
hand, if somebody is
Mm.
coming to pick you up on airport, you still have to take a flight and you still have to go on your own alone all this while, and that can be, and you don't know how the plane shakes and jitters, and every time you
Yeah.
feel, oh my God, what's gonna happen? So
Mm.
that could be.
That's daunting.
Yeah. So yeah, I really appreciate, Sophia, for, like this conversation. I think we've touched a lot of areas, and um I'm also wondering if, there's something in your mind that you felt we did not covered, or there's something you felt like, okay, we could probably, dwell more.
Well, I'm thankful for you for bringing up these questions, because this is probably the first time that I'm so openly talking about these topics. I don't usually get to do that, and I usually, mostly, I would say it's through my own fault that I hold back in order to not come off as crazy, as delusional, and talking about death and other realms and
Mhm.
so on and so forth. So this is the first opportunity that I've had to actually talk about these things. Thank you so much for that.
No, I really appreciate you actually opening up and sharing about these feelings, because these are really heartfelt and real questions we carry in our heart. And so I'm grateful to you. Um, I also had like one or two thoughts in my mind before we sort of close our conversation, was is that one what I wanted to ask you about, that when we work with, like, let's say our ancestral connection, or working with our parents or grandparents, uh I'm not sure in our generation, but of course it's there. But in a lot of generations, like for example, Gen Z or even before, like they don't have a very great relationship sometimes with their parents. Like I know, for example, in our support group that we meet, there's one person who's from US. She comes and shares that two of her sisters don't even talk to their parents. They've cut off, like, because they find parents to be very toxic, narcissistic, abusive, and they're not, nurturing the child before they go, or even they become very bitter and resentful in their old age. So
Hmm.
during that experiences, how do you really work with the person to sort of, whether it's ancestral healing or whether working with death, about how to, when they have a very strong, again, the uproot cut, they the parent has not even died, or but they've just cut already, right, because of the way parents have become. So
Hmm. Hmm.
how does that goes? Yeah.
It's See, that can be, again, going back to our conversation about the limitations of Western models of therapy.
Mhm. Yes.
So usme it's you're working with yourself, and the only way that you can resolve this is cutting yourself off from the toxicity. So just cut them off, and you're okay. Just exist as an individual, but also untethered, unanchored, because you've cut yourself off from your roots. The
Mhm.
roots were you were finding it very difficult to exist with them. Uh, in in this case, when you're done working with yourself, when you're in a place where you have basically build these boundaries around yourself. Excuse me. That's when, in order to heal that toxicity, because therapy is not going to give you any tools to do anything to mend that relationship. If that person still has the desire to mend that relationship, but they're at a loss of what to do about the parents, because I've done everything. They're adamant, they're holding on to their own belief systems and their own toxicity and all that. Everything. I can't do anything about that. What do I do? So I call upon my ancestors. I call upon their parents or their grandparents, and I tell them, look, your kids are making my life so difficult. Do something about this.
Yeah.
So healing that pattern, because of course the parents are playing out a pattern
Yeah. So it's like
of
an
abuse,
intervention.
of narcissism.
Mhm.
It's like an intervention. So me getting in touch with my grandmother to say, look, look, here's what your daughter's been doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Please help me.
Yeah. So yeah, some kind of intervention can be
Hmm.
there in the history. And so that's great. Yeah. So that really sort of, brings out a sense that okay, you're not alone. There's
Hmm.
you don't have to cut off from your past just because one, sort of relationship in your lineage feels like very difficult. You can still access your other parts and then build a relationship. There's something
Yes.
intergenerationally coming out, and yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
yeah.
we go looking for a well and healed one. Who is the like where can we find that well and healed ancestor?
Hmm.
Is it my great grandparents? No, they're also not. Then going beyond them, until you find someone who's well and healed and who can let you know, here's what happened. Here's where the rupture happened. And all these people, they're living this pattern of toxicity, this pattern of harm. So and then that's where the healing comes in.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Great. So I think that just answers to that. Yeah, I think we can probably, gradually now pause here because I feel we've covered a lot more ground, and I'm also grateful for how you stayed on and showed up and also like expressed with your heart that those meaningful experiences that are, I think, very important to talk about. So, and I'm sure I hope this conversation can be, helpful to others as well. And it was really for
I
me
hope so too.
to, yeah, so we can pause here right now. Thank
Okay.
you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you, Pankaj.
Yes.